Hi, my name is Jigar Shah. I'm the founder of SunEdison, and today I'm a partner at Energous Ventures. And today I'd love to take you through how to do project finance. It's a little bit boring, but as you can see, it's boring on purpose because once you tap into it, it's a very, very large source of money that you can use to grow your business without diluting your own ownership stake in your company. Because a lot of businesses out there need a lot of project financing, but they take in equity company finance, which of course makes you own less of your company. So project finance is non-dilutive capital. So generally speaking, when a bank or somebody wants to give you project finance, they want to know that they're going to invest in something that gets installed. That thing, like solar panels for instance, generates value. Someone pays you for that value, and they're going to pay you for that value for, let's say, 20 years. And over that 20 years, as they pay for that value, the bank gets paid back, right? So the more confident they are that that whole system is going to work, the more likely they're going to give you money without requiring an ownership stake in your company. And so that's the whole point of project finance. Now, it might sound a little simple, but it gets a little bit complicated. So we'll see if we can make it simple, make it a little bit complicated, and then make it simple again. All right. So with project finance. So what you need first is a customer. And I'll use SunEdison as an example, which is a solar company. But we can also explore how it might be used for building efficiency or agriculture or water efficiency technologies or other things. So you've got solar panels on the roof, right? And you've got a customer here. Let's call this Whole Foods. And Whole Foods says, we really want to buy solar power, but there is no way that we're going to spend $500,000 of our money on a solar system because we're a food company. So why would we get into the power business, right? So Whole Foods says, okay, I'll sign a contract to buy your power for 20 years at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, right? And so that means that they're going to buy the power at a fixed price compared to what they would have paid to Xcel Energy, which is the utility in this area in Denver, Colorado. They're going to buy it for 10 cents a kilowatt hour off their own roof. And so that it's secure and it's local and it's green. So now you've got a contract for 20 years at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. That's pretty cool. So you've got a company that's publicly traded that has been around the block for a while, that a bank might consider will probably be in business for 20 years, selling groceries, which most people think is an essential thing to do. And they're going to buy power for 20 years. So now how do you turn that into project finance, right? So you've got a developer here, right? So this is the solar developer. And the way they make money is by installing these systems, right? They really want to make money by installing systems, so they want the $500,000. And with the $500,000, they make some sort of profit margin on it. So what the solar developer does is they get this contract signed, and they find a bank over here. And so we'll call this an investor. Right? And so the investor says, this looks really interesting, but how do I make sure that I get paid back, right? So they say, well, we're going to first study these solar panels. Who makes these solar panels? Well, these solar panels are made by Siemens, let's say, right? Siemens is a big company. They got a 25-year warranty on the solar panels. Okay, I feel comfortable with the solar panels because we think that the company that manufactured them is going to be around, had high quality. If it breaks, they're going to come in and fix it, etc. Now, let me look at this solar developer. How many systems has that solar developer installed? Well, they've only done one system. This will be their second system that they're installing. The bank might say, well, I don't know. These guys, they were fly-by-night company. They may not be around. So you sort of have to look at that. And how do these questions manifest itself? Through the interest rate, right? So the investor says, this is super low risk. They're going to give you 8%, right? Now, if the investor instead says, whoa, I'm the first person to do this with you, I don't know. Now it's 18%, right? And both sources of capital could be cost effective, because when you get venture capital money, the venture capital money is usually imputed to be 40% interest money, right? And so you shouldn't be using venture capital money to fund your first $500,000 system on Whole Foods. Whether it's 18% or whether it's 8%, you're actually better off using this investor capital, right? But this investor capital has conditions. They want a contract which is financeable. So for instance, provisions like, what if Whole Foods moves? Who gets to pay? Well, in this case, in the contract that we developed at SunEdison, Whole Foods had to pay a moving charge. What if Whole Foods goes out of business in this particular location and shuts down, and there's no stores in Denver for it to move it to? Well, then in this case, they had to pay a penalty of, let's say, $400,000 to be able to pay back the investor, right? You can imagine these are provisions that Whole Foods probably doesn't want to sign up to. And so this is the rub. Otherwise, everyone would be doing this. And so you have to get educated. So the investor, owns the contract. They get, let's call it an 18% rate of return. So the investor gives you $500K. So now you get the $500K. You then invest money on Whole Foods' rooftops, and suddenly a system occurs. Presto, you now have a project finance deal. So the solar developer gets $500,000. It costs them $400,000 to put the system on the roof. So the solar developer now made $100,000 in profit. Right? Now, why would the investor make this deal? So the investor, on this $500,000 solar system, gets a $500,000 solar system, and this is for solar, but we can go through the math on other types of assets in the future. There's a 30% tax credit on solar, so that's $150,000, right? So now the investor only has $350,000 left to get back, plus they want a return. And this today is roughly a 200 kilowatt solar system is $500,000. So a 200 kilowatt solar system in Denver produces about 300,000 kilowatt hours a year, which at 10 cents a kilowatt hour is about $30,000 of power per year, right? So now the investor gets that for 20 years, right? So now the investor is getting $600,000 in payments from Whole Foods, right? On top of that, the investor actually gets what they call renewable energy credits, and they can sell those renewable energy credits to Xcel Energy, and those renewable energy credits are generally something on the order of 20 years times about $10,000 per year. So that's another $200,000. So the investor puts up $500,000, and they get back $150,000 in tax credits. They get $600,000 in electricity payments and $200,000 in rec payments. So now you've got $950,000 that the investor gets, and they only put up $500,000. Right? So that's how the investor makes money.
100% return on investment.
Yep.
For that. So why aren't people lining up?
Well, today in the solar community, people are lining up, right? So you've got Wells Fargo and Google and MassMutual and MetLife, and lots of people are doing it. And now you even have high net worth individuals putting systems on their roof as well. The reason why smaller investors can't do solar yet is because they can't use the tax credit. And so that's why they're not doing it. But I can go through a few more examples of how you could do this for agriculture or water efficiency or building efficiency, where this tax credit's not such a big deal. And so you can actually do this as a smaller investor. So let's say you are an entrepreneur that came up with a brand new air conditioning system, right? There's a couple of those companies in in the Denver area, I think Colorado and Ice Energy, right? So you're now an entrepreneur that has an air conditioning unit, right? And that air conditioning unit costs $20,000 that's the selling price to, we'll just use Whole Foods again because, it's easy. Exactly. So Whole Foods has got air conditioning needs, and they've got a unit on their roof that's made by, let's call it, Train, and their unit costs $10,000. Right? Now, the economics of HVAC are such that Whole Foods has to pay $10,000 for this, plus they have to pay $2,000 per year for maintenance. Plus, they need to pay an additional $2,000 a year for electricity to make this HVAC thing go, right? So over 20 years, the cost of this system is $10,000 plus $2,000 times 20 plus $2,000 for electricity times 20. And so now you've got $40,000 in maintenance, $40,000 in electricity, $10,000 original, right? So now over 20 years, this thing, it costs you $90,000, right? Now you take this AC system, because you are such an amazing entrepreneur, your system is awesome. It's double the efficiency, and it's half the maintenance. And so it uses $1,000 of maintenance per year, and it's $1,000 of electricity per year, but it costs double for the unit, right? So now this is O&M, and this is electricity. And now for 20 years, this is now something on the order of $20,000 for O&M, $20,000 for electricity. So it's a total cost of $60,000 over 20 years, right? So clearly, it's a lot cheaper than the traditional air conditioning unit. But you're now the CFO of Whole Foods, and your O&M, your HVAC unit craps out. You need to buy a new one, and you're saying, well, which one do I buy? Do I buy the more expensive one and then wait for a number of years to get paid back? In this case, you would save about $2,000 a year, so it'd be 5 years before you got your payback, right? Or do you actually just go with the cheap $10,000 one because it's easy, you've done it before? And I think the answer to that question for most of you is they're going to go with the $10,000 one, right? Because it's easy, it's cheap. So now, what if you made Whole Foods a deal? What if you said, look, pay me $10,000 because you were going to pay it anyway, right? You were going to pay it for the training anyway. So pay me $10,000, and now you pay me $1,500 a year for maintenance and $1,500 a year for the electricity, right? Because Whole Foods is saving $2,000 a year in maintenance and $2,000 in electricity. So you say to Whole Foods, you're going to save $500 on both, and I'm going to make $500 extra on both, right? And so now I'm going to get, over 20 years, I'm going to get, in this case, $30,000 and $30,000. So I'm going to get $60,000 in payments I'm going to get $60,000 in payments from you, but it's going to cost me $1,000 in O&M and $1,000 in electricity, right? So that's going to be minus $40,000, right? So that's $20,000, right? So in this example, the company gets $10,000 now, and they get $20,000 over the next 20 years. So now they get $30,000 for their $20,000 unit, and Whole Foods saves $500 and $500 here, right? So they're going to save $20,000 over the 20 years, right? So you could imagine this is something that Whole Foods might say, sure. If it's not going to cost us any more than what our train unit was going to cost us, we'll pay the 10 grand to you, and then we'll pay you a less cost for maintenance and electricity, $1,500 instead of $2,000, and we're off we go, right? So the question becomes, how do you structure this contract to get, an investor to want to pay you, right? And in this case, basically, you just have to do the same things that we did before. It's a 20-year contract. It's a 20-year contract. So now the question becomes like, how could you possibly get screwed? Well, one of the ways you could get screwed is that Whole Foods could go out of business again and then not pay you. But in this case, maybe you say, well, but I can always just remove this thing with a crane and put it on a new customer. So that's not such a big deal. I don't know the particulars of your particular company, but that might be something you can give on, where on the electricity side, that wasn't as easy to do on the solar panel side. The other thing you would say is, well, what happens if they change the use of the store, right? And so what if they change the use of the store such that Whole Foods now turns this into a warehouse or something, and so they don't need as much air conditioning? Well, you're going to have to put a provision in the contract, so if they're using a lot less air conditioning, then you're still going to charge them $1,500, and so they're going to still have to deal with that risk, right? There are lots of other questions. So you're going to have to go through those questions and say, what are the answers to those questions, and how do I make an investor comfortable that my technology, which is brand new and, of course, doesn't have a lot of test data, is actually going to do this, right? Because what happens if instead of $40,000 of costs here, you actually incur much more than that? If you do, then what will happen is that you'll go out of business. And the investor will say, well, I own this air conditioning unit, and the company that actually whose unit I invested in went out of business, right? And now I got to find someone else to do the operations and maintenance. So one of the ways to alleviate that is potentially to hire Train to do the maintenance on the unit, right? And now Train might even sell the units for you, because they're not going to get cut out of this deal. They're going to get their money by doing the maintenance and the electricity for you, as opposed to getting cut out of the deal, right? So they might actually go to all of their customers who want to buy more energy efficient air conditioning units and upsell them your units, as opposed to trying to convince them that those units don't work, or are snake oil, or all the things that they probably do now. So anyway, here's another reason why project finance can be very useful. So Whole Foods is generally not going to do this because it's good for the planet. They're going to do this because they're in pain. I'll give you an example. Whole Foods has been around for a long time. So maybe Whole Foods actually has a whole bunch of units on their roof right now that are 20 years old. And the CFO might say, I've got 200 units on my rooftops across the country that are over 20 years old, and I don't want to put up the money to replace them with Train. And so I'm actually sitting here, I'm not doing the maintenance on these units because, and they're gonna crap out on me at any point, and that's gonna make the user experience in the store horrible, because it's gonna get hot, and then I'm gonna lose some product, all these things, right? So they're in pain here. They're worried. They're like, I don't want to put up several $1 million to replace all these units, but at the same time, I want to be green, I want to do the right thing, but I'm conflicted, right? And so the question is, are they in enough pain that they're going to ask you to come in, talk to you about your contract, work through all the details with you, and actually get to the finish line? If they are, then they will.
Write the word pain up on the board.
So the question for Whole Foods is, you have two types of people that sell to them. Some people sell vitamin pills, and some people sell pain medication. And which one do you think gets most attention? This one, right? If you're selling pain medication and people are in pain, they buy it all day long. If you're selling vitamin pills, you have a 1 out of 100 chance of actually selling that project. Right? Most people don't want to take their vitamin pills. So like one way to do this is, for instance, building efficiency, right? So there's a technology called continuous commissioning. And what that is that, your building, even if it's a LEED green building, goes out of spec as soon as you turn it on. As soon as you turn it on, things start getting changed. People like change little knobs in their office. People like do all sorts of stuff to make the building more comfortable for them, which makes it less optimal as a building, right? And so because of that, the building actually uses 10 to 15% more energy than it should be using if it was continuously commissioned. And so they have all these software tools that do continuous commissioning. And in this case, what they do is you have a building, and generally speaking, you have a little box right here, which is called a building automation box, right? And that's the box that controls the lights, so it turns off at like 8 p.m. every night, and that's the box that makes sure that the temperature stays the same. So almost all large buildings have them in there. Johnson Controls, Honeywell, other people sell them. Now the question is, if you could connect this box to a Wi-Fi source and put all the data into the cloud, now you actually have a set of data here in the cloud, and you can actually, use computers to analyze that data, right? And you can use that. Analysis to actually, continuously send data to this box so that the building is continuously commissioned, right? So in this case, the sensors in the box might cost, $10,000 to install, right? And building owner would save $5,000 a year in savings. Right? So it's a 2-year payback. But you can imagine there's a lot of people who say, no, I'm not going to wait 2 years to get my money back. So instead, you do a software as a service platform, right? Which is basically project finance. So you pay $10,000, right? And this guy is saving something on the order of $410 per month, right? So you charge him $300 a month, right, for a service. And you say, I'm going to charge you $300 a month for 3 years for this service, and in exchange, we're going to basically, monitor the stuff, make sure your building is continuously commissioned, and we'll even give you advice, because I've got all this data about your building. So I'll actually say to you, hey, your air conditioner is not sized properly, or your lighting is not done properly, or because once you have all this data signatures, you can actually give them more advice, or you can even give them deeper retrofits. So they pay $300 a month times 36 months, right? Because that's 3 years. And so if you do that over 36 months, then my math is not serving me very well, but it's about but roughly, $10,000, like $200 or something like that. I think it's like $11,000 or something. So if you actually get that back, you now get your $10,000, of which there's a profit margin in it, but the customer actually moves and actually does the deal, right? And it's not really physical hardware, it's more of a software as a service model, but it's the same thing. And the beauty is, after you're done with that 3 years, they might actually renew the contract, right? And if they renew the contract, now you're printing money. It's like the alarm system. So you're a company, so you're an entrepreneur and you started a new company, right? And now you're trying to figure out how to raise money. You have venture capital, you've got private equity, and now you have project finance. And project finance isn't for everybody. But if you have a product that actually saves a customer money, and that customer is willing to sign a contract that's long enough and comprehensive enough to pay off what it is that you're selling, these guys don't require an ownership stake in your company.